I'm really stoked for this one because you are someone who keeps people accountable for what they did, for what they said on X. And I love your posts about how never forget series. And I also love the ones where you expose Bill Gates. Those are my favorite. So today I want to talk about the COVID, the pandemic, and I also want to nitpick everything that you post about, if you allow me. So we will be going through most topics that you cover. And you are very popular, and there is a reason for that because you are brave and you talk about the things that everyone should be talking about, but for some reason we are not. So let's get started. Right. So you were a successful scientist, right?
I'd
You
say so,
were
yes.
you had your PhD, you were securing grants, and then the pandemic starts, and then you start questioning the PCR tests, right? You start questioning the COVID-19 measures and the public health and everything. But I'm really curious to know, how did you know? Because there are like thousands and thousands of scientists and doctors. They, to this day, they believe what happened during the pandemic was correct and that the vaccines are safe and effective. But how did you know?
Oh, well, common sense. It's just common sense. Um, so until 2020, there was nothing to speak out against that was like totally crazy, you know. So I followed my scientific career, was on the way to enter tenure track to become a full professor, um, and I was doing my job as a scientist. You know, I was publishing about health, bioreactors, and innovative food production systems. So yeah, I've been a lot working with the microbiome of animals and human beings, of our metabolism, of like what kind of food does what in our body, how can we improve our alimentation. Um, and at some point, it was I think December 2019. I learned that people were dropping on the streets in China, and I was just like not thinking anything. I was like, "Oh, that's China, you know, it's far away. Nothing is going on." And then more and more people were starting about, "Oh, this dangerous virus," and it was during that time I was diving deep into vitamin D, writing publications about this, teaching about this. So I was like, okay, everyone's talking about a virus. But like, okay, I was waiting for the moment people say, okay, just get your vitamin D on track and everything's going to be all right. So I created my X account, my Twitter account, Twitter 1.0. It was in February 2020. You can just check it out, just to be up to date to what's happening in China because mainstream media wasn't talking about this a lot, just like some bits here and there. And so, yeah, when on my birthday, March 16th, they were declaring the global pandemic, and they were starting to spread fear and panic, and I was confused, because all I've learned during my scientific career is if there is ever some health emergency, you should keep people calm, right? They should say like, "Hey guys, everything's going to be all right. Just do some sports, take your vitamin D, eat healthy, and you don't have to worry about anything." So this is actually the official program, or was the official program of the WHO, as a response to a pandemic, but they didn't do it. So they were like panicking all over the world. They were panicking here in Brazil. They were panicking in Germany, in the Netherlands, US, everywhere. So there was no common sense response to an alleged pandemic. Um, when they were then saying you have to stay inside, you shouldn't go to the supermarket. You should buy fast food or order online, and you should stay. You shouldn't like. They had it's called Dutch avondklok. It's like a curfew at night. So they
Yeah.
said like in Holland, if you go on the streets after 8 p.m., it's a crime. Like as if like there is a floating virus out there that only gets activated at 8 p.m. I mean, like nobody on the streets. There, no place is safer, but they didn't want you outside, and nothing made sense. So
Mm.
I was taking the month of April to write a publication of vitamin D. I was like explaining, hey, you have to take it with K2 and magnesium in order to make it um, bioavailable and avoid calcification, and just get your vitamin D on track. You will never get the sniffles. COVID is no threat. That's what I wrote literally, and it got published. And then That's when it started. So I published this paper, peer reviewed,
When
and
did you publish it?
April, I think it was April or May 20. I submitted it in April or May 2020, and got published in June, July, very fast. Um,
Mm.
so it had like I think 2 or 3 iterations. Um, but yes, it got published eventually. And my university got many emails from fact checkers, from so-called skeptics who aren't skeptic, by the way. Um, and yeah, they all claimed that I earned money with vitamin D. You know, that I should have mentioned it in the paper, that there are
Oh, what should you have mentioned?
that I okay, so the skeptics say that they were that I should have mentioned in the paper that I earn money with the vitamin D shop. They call it conflict
Oh,
of interest. So you always underneath the
oh,
paper you have it says conflict of interest, and they should
yeah.
mention it. But I didn't have a vitamin D shop, but they just made it up. So I had to show my university and this journal. I had to get a bank extract and I had to show them, look, I really didn't receive any cent from vitamin D. So my paper stands and there are no conflict of interest. And this is what I saw all throughout this pandemic. Whenever you say something, they try to smear you for stuff you didn't do, or which is not true. And I think this action of these skeptics going after me, that woke me up like totally, that there's something totally wrong. I mean, like all the first response and the narrative with the masks, everything was wrong. I mean, like I've been working in a lab, and I know how these masks work and what they can prevent and what they can't. And the mask narrative for me was like a mm, big red flag. But it was just like, okay, governments are stupid. They're just stupid. They don't know. But when it continued with the summer, and they said like during the summer everybody is going to die with, you remember these models they were making, Ferguson, and there were other people. Neil Ferguson made this model like everybody in Sweden's going to die. Sweden was didn't enforce any measures or hardly any measures. So he literally, I mean, he didn't say everybody's going to die, but he made this curve, this apocalypse
Yeah.
curve. And I remember, like, okay, usually during the summer there's something called seasonality. People get more sunshine, get more sunlight. They have elevated vitamin D levels, so usually that's why during the summer nobody gets sick, because actually flu season is vitamin D deficiency season, or sniffles deficiency season. I mean, like the COVID was nothing but the sniffles, right? So I knew this is not gonna happen during June, July. Not Sweden's like Swedish people aren't gonna die en masse, and it didn't happen at all. So he made this model, and then there's a nice graphic. It actually says model of Neil Ferguson and reality. The reality was like just like 1% on there or something, um, of people dying with a positive PCR test, which is another story. But in general, we can say everything they were saying in the beginning didn't come true. Like nothing, literally nothing. So I was like, "Okay, this is wild." And, um, so um, after the summer, I mean, like, they continued saying, "Okay, we're developing the vaccine." I was just, like, a bit vocal on X. I was starting to publish a bit. I think I had, like, between 3 and 20 followers in January 2021. So it's not a lot. It's like 20 times smaller than your account. I mean, like, even more, even smaller. I was a nobody account, nobody. Um, and then a neighbor in Holland asked me if I could look into a specific publication on the PCR protocol written by Christian Drosten, who's from Berlin. Christian Drosten, this piece of shit. So he was literally writing a PCR protocol paper. So actually was writing the protocol for the PCR test, and he was submitting it on 20th of, oh, don't make me get it wrong, 20th of February, 2020,
Mhm.
and it got published on the 21st of February 2020, within one day. So submission until publication one day, peer review process is impossible. It usually takes months, if not years. Um, he was like, "Can you dive into this?" And I was doing an analysis, and I was checking the sources he was using when they got published, and to what degree it all makes sense. And I figured out it was less than 22 hours even from submission until publication. And then I checked the editorial board of the journal Eurosurveillance, which is EU owned, and who was on the editorial board? Christian Drosten. So he's not even allowed to publish there. which raises red flags, right? And then I figured out, oh, one of his co-authors, Marion Koopmans, the Dutch state virologist, she was on this WHO committee that made this PCR protocol or this PCR test gold standard the 21st of February. So he needed to publish it within 24 hours so it could become WHO standard. So everybody could get like mass tested, so we could test the whole world. And without the test, there wouldn't have been any pandemic. And what did Christian Drosten do as well? He was the person who came up with this myth of asymptomatic transmission. So he was the first person who was showing that there's asymptomatic transmission by chance by a Chinese person flying into Munich, I think. And he was the person who said, he was the guy who was like showing that there's asymptomatic transmission. So we have Christian Drosten who developed this PCR protocol from social media data from China, which is not very reliable. And then on top of it, had this test running with a cycle threshold. I think it was higher than 35, and he came up with the myth of asymptomatic transmission. If you take all these things together, you can create a pandemic without having sick people. And that's what
Yeah.
Christian Drosten did. And he's still a free man in Germany, by the way. He shouldn't be. In every sane country would be in jail right now. But that's at least what he did. And I was writing an analysis on X about this. So what a thread I was explaining, since I was an editor of that time in a Springer Nature journal, I was explaining how a peer review process works, from the beginning, from submission to the publication. So usually it gets to an editor, and he or she is looking for people who want to review the paper. It usually takes time, and then you have like several iterations between the author and the reviewers, which should be 2 or 3 people. That usually takes several months. Um, alone reading the paper, alone giving feedback takes days. So I don't know how any reviewer could do this within hours. And I mean, there must have been iterations between the authors and the reviewers, because no single paper in the world, I think, got accepted in the first round. So it doesn't exist. So there need to be at least 1, 2, or 3 rounds, which didn't take place because time-wise it's impossible. And then you have the typesetter, the guy who needs to put everything in this document so you can put it on the website. The typesetter usually takes weeks. But let's say the typesetter was there and was like super important, but still, you can't do this within hours. So actually, I think what happened is he submitted it, and the typesetter was immediately working on it so they could publish it. So, we asked the journal for proof for peer review, because usually peer review process is anonymous, right? So if you're a peer reviewer, the author doesn't know who is reviewing this paper. We ask your surveillance to send us the reports, the anonymous reports of the reviewers, and they said like they can't because it would violate personality, like the personality. It doesn't make any sense because it's anonymous. So they indirectly said like, no, we don't have them. So there was some real fraud going on. And I wrote this Twitter thread explaining everything, and then I lost my job right after. My university back then in Holland said like, okay, what you said is totally correct, but sometimes you need to know when to shut the fuck up. So this is the situation I was in in
So
early 2021.
when was your bank accounts were frozen, and why
Oh,
exactly? Do
just
you
I don't
know?
know. I don't know why. They didn't tell me.
So your personal bank accounts were just stopped working one day?
Yes, PayPal was frozen, and the other one was deactivated. They told me you can get another bank somewhere else, and we will transfer you the money. I never got the money.
No, but,
Um,
like, so you were in Netherlands, and there are,
yeah,
like, the normal banks, right? Like, I don't know, Deutsche Bank,
yeah,
Sparkasse. So
yeah.
you it d so what happened to the money in your account?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the government took it. I don't know. There was not much money left because I took the money before and I bought land in Brazil. But there were still a couple of thousand on my account, and I've never seen it back. It's with them.
And so when did this happen?
March, March 2021, April.
Okay, so by
And
that
then,
time, you were quite vocal about and questioning all this.
yeah. It's when
Okay.
they fired me in March. So must
This
have
is
been.
very, very concerning, like, if they
Yes,
can
and
just take away your
there was one
livelihood.
professor. Yes, there was one professor. He told me that this. this decision came from all the way up. That's what he's told me in a phone call. Unfortunately, I didn't record the phone call because who records phone calls? But he told me like the decision to get rid of me comes from all the way up. So probably the ministry or some, I don't know. He didn't tell me. Um, but yeah,
What do you think was the tipping point for them?
I was going after the Dutch state virologist Maren Koopmans. So she was every day on TV telling how awful COVID is. And I actually showed that she committed fraud, most likely. I have to say most likely because 99.9999%. So yeah, imagine. It's the same in Germany. Like people who went after Drosten, they all ended up in front of court, right? So or got cancelled. So there were some people who were pushing the narrative. It was their task to push the narrative. You can tell
Like,
by all the contradictions. So remember Drosten, he said like, "Oh, a mask doesn't stop any pathogen." So a couple of months later, he went to, "Oh, use a cloth mask." No, 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 use a surgical mask. And then no, FFP2 or N95, how you say in English. So they always shifted the goalposts. It's very typical. I mean, they also said like, "Oh, if you get the vaccine, you can't get the disease." And they said like, "Oh, if you get the vaccine and another person doesn't get it, you can still get the disease. So, or in other
yeah,
words, your vaccine only works if other people take it as well. So it doesn't make any sense. Nothing makes sense. And these were the
nothing makes
people who were
sense.
always pushing the narrative. There are so many contradictions, enough to actually put them in jail forever. But no, nothing's happening to them because they were most likely installed to push the narrative. So why should those people who were feeding them put them into jail? So dangerous people, by the way. And yeah, they were coming after
Yeah.
everybody who was going against the narrative.
That kind of reminds me what you just said about your bank account, that they took away your bank account, your work, where you worked. It's just like the same methods they used were, Stalin, he would send everybody to Gulag
Yeah,
for speaking up.
the
It's
same,
like the
the
same
same.
techniques.
Or
It's
East
so
Germany, Stasi. They were like looking, oh, he's against the party. Er ist gegen die Partei. Yeah, and
yeah.
then you can't get a job. It's actually not getting a job. But anyways, I got a job afterwards because there was a research institute. I wrote a follow-up funding a proposal and I got the money. The chance to get money was 1%. I got it. So there were many institutions on this consortium. So I think it was 12 different institutions, and nobody of them. So I got the money for all of them. I got them the funding, and nobody wanted to have me. Imagine you get like funding for many institutions. Everybody says like, no, 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 not you, not you. Oh no, you're like, what the fuck? I got you the money, and and they wanna hire someone else. Like what? But one institution from Norway, they were aware of my social media, and they were like, "We're gonna take you. We're gonna take you happily," and they took me as a scientist. And luckily, the same day I signed the contract, my Twitter account got banned for posting my vitamin D paper. So I got banned from Twitter. The ban was in total 18 months, and literally when I got my account back, I was fired right away. You can just, you just,
Yeah.
just one plus one is two, right?
Wow.
You can
Wow.
do the
Okay, so
math. So
it
yes,
just sounds like a coordinated effort behind the scenes to just make sure that you're just gonna stop what you were doing.
yep.
Um, why do you think that most doctors and scientists, like, chose not to speak up? And some even, like, went as far as, misinforming the public, claiming that the COVID vaccines were safe and effective, and they aggressively attacked people like you. W Like, why do you think that they're doing it? Like, I'm very curious. Are they
Yeah.
being paid? What is happening?
Do you know what eunuchs are? Eunuchs?
No.
Oh, it's people who don't have balls, right? So I think back in
Okay.
India, like little boys were cut off the balls so they could still sing and in a high voice.
Well,
So
so
these
they're
people, they like balls, literally. They like testicles. These people are pussies. I don't know in which other terms I should say. They were afraid that they could be the next to get canceled.
so they worried for their, like, job, for their
I know I've
career.
talked to some, and yes, they said this. And the other, so you have this is the one kind, the people with the balls, and then you have people who believe the narrative. And why do they believe the narrative? It's because they're kind of manipulated their whole life. So how do you make
Mm,
it? How do you become a professor in the university nowadays? You only become it if you follow the narrative, right? So if
mm.
you tell everything which is in line with the government, then you're able to make it to the top. And those uncritical people who made it to the top, who just follow the narrative, they're the ones who are teaching your children. And these children are the ones that will be the next professors. So it's a more or less self-fulfilling prophecy. It's a vicious circle um, that is actually posing a systematic issue to our education system. So most professors, at least at the university where I was at, because one of the most leftist universities in the world, they were all getting the vaccine right away. They were using masks, and I was like, "Hey, it doesn't work." And they say like, "Well, but they say it works." I'm like, "You're a professor. You think a bit. Like, you know, when we go into the lab, it doesn't even help against bacteria. So how is it supposed to aid against viruses?" And they're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah,
well, at least we show that there is something out there." It's like always, uh, they always come up with
that's
these
so
things.
bad.
So they
That's
always come
horrible.
up. Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible. And yeah, it went like this with everybody there. So they're always like, "Yeah, you're entitled with your own opinion, but you have to sometimes you have to know when to shut the fuck up." And this to me isn't science; it's scientism. Um, and that's a huge problem. It's the same with climate change, the same with everything. So if you are critical towards the current thing, you get canceled. You don't have any chance. So that's
So
why they are quiet.
what I'm hearing is they are censoring others who are speaking up. They're attacking others. They're misinforming. It's because either they are not courageous and they are being forced to do that, or they just believe everything that they're being told, despite them being scientists or doctors.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so I think hardly anyone got forced to say what they say. I think there are some players, of course, like Drosten, Hotez, Kopans, they know what they're doing.
Mm,
And I think the
mm.
majority is just
So,
going along.
so
They just believe it because they never learn to be critical. So if all people who think critically, right? So if you're a free mind, you don't make it to these positions. You don't make it as a professor. So those who are uncritical, they make it up there. How can you, as a uncritical person, teach other people to be critical as well? You can't, and you're uncritical yourself because everybody who was critical before got sieved out of the system. And so we are facing a um, professors in academia nowadays who are just uncritical, who just um, believe everything the government would tell them to. If they say, "Oh, the Earth is flat," the next time is the day they say, like, "Oh, why would they lie to us? Of course, the Earth is flat." So because they don't think by themselves, it's a systematic problem.
so what again, so people like you are rare, especially the ones who started speaking up like in the beginning. What gave you the courage? And did you expect that there are going to be consequences? Did you think that's going to happen, or did you think it was not going to be anything serious?
No, I was super naive. I was super naive. So I should have known after my vitamin D paper when they came after me. It's like, "We want to have your bank extract. We want to see or your bank account." I was like shocked more or less, but I was like, "I'm going to prove them wrong." I should have actually said like, "Fuck you, no way." And but like I had a job and everything was fine. So why should I, right? So I was a bit shocked, but when I wrote about this peer process, I was like, I'm an expert in that field, so I can actually explain people, how it should be like, and I can question things. And I was like, okay, all my colleagues will be like, "Simon, oh, this is so awesome," but nobody said that. Nobody said like, "Simon, what you said was so awesome. Oh my gosh, you were like exposing a huge scandal." I really thought this would have been the reaction, but it wasn't. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So what they actually did, so my university had some podcast, and they put me on a podcast together with some WHO shill who used to work for the university and was always telling me, "Oh, you're a misinformation spreader. Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist." Like this the whole time, like 1 hour like this, without any facts, just like accusing me. And then the moderator of the university would be on his side all the time, despite him not saying any fact. This drove me so crazy. You cannot imagine. I should give this guy a shitstorm. Let me write it down. He released one. He needs one now. Um, because he doesn't have a he has a 20 or 30,000 followers account. I did a super small one, and he was like
What's his
attacking me the
name?
whole time. I don't know. It was like some Indian dude who was from Holland or something. I have to look it up. I will make a tweet and ridicule him because he was obviously working for the WHO, and his task was to go after every critical scientist in the Netherlands, and what they were doing was quite nasty. And I almost forgot about this dude, but at least there was this podcast, and he was like, there was no until now. I've been to hundreds of podcasts, and this was one I broke up. I was like, no, we stop here now. You're not gonna publish this, or I'm gonna sue you, because it was just like calling me names the whole time. Nowadays, I would have loved them to publish, of course, because but then this time it was a bit different. I had like 5,000 followers, and imagine like. Being insulted publicly at a university podcast. No, this wasn't cool. Um, so yeah, I told them they're not going to publish it, or I'm really getting a lawyer, and they didn't publish it. But it was really nasty what they did, because they said like, "Oh, we want to hear both sides," and then they invited a WHO shill. Wow. Anyways, yeah, this
Yeah.
was this was the situation back then. It was quite nasty, and yeah, I mean, like we learned a
They
lot, didn't we?
were Yeah, but I think that they were so smart and cunning about what they did. They were so the coercion that they everything, the restrictions, how it was a psychological game, right? They were playing it. So for example, I think you shared how they were saying, okay, so if you are a Biden supporter, they were publishing certain things that would make you get a vaccination, and if you were like a Trump supporter, they would publish articles that would catered for that. They would also say, or if you're not vaccinated, then you don't deserve a medical treatment, or if you're not
Yeah.
vaccinated, you should not be invited to family gatherings. They were very cunning about it. They just came up
Not
they were
should
very
be.
creative. They were very
They had
creative.
laws, and that literally laws in Germany that said, like, for Christmas, if one child in your family is unvaccinated, you can take the second child. So
Yeah.
it was crazy, and Lauterbach was pushing it, actually. There was
I was
shitstorm as
not
well for
able
this
to
one.
take my kids to any activities. Like, I couldn't take my kids to swimming or to any activities at all. Like, we were like bound to be at home, and we could just go to the nearby playground, which was thankfully that was at least available. I was not
Mm.
able to go to anything. Like, I was just the only place that I could hang out at was a grocery store. Thankfully,
Wow.
there was a grocery store that it was the only entertainment that I had. I couldn't go to cafes. I couldn't meet with my friends because nobody wanted me, because I didn't have the QR code to scan. I couldn't take my kids
So
to any
so your
activities.
friends didn't want you to visit them because you didn't
No,
take.
they would always gather at places where they required QR code. Does that
Oh.
make sense? So I
I mean,
I don't have
lucky
I don't
you.
have one. So
Uh,
they were really good at it. They were so good
Mm.
at that you couldn't go to concerts. Like, for example, my friend, she was very suspicious about the vaccine, but her family were telling if she doesn't get the vaccine, because obviously they hear everything that's being said in the media, right? They're saying, repeating the same things. If she doesn't get the vaccine, then she's putting at risk her mother, who is elderly. And another friend of mine, she worked all her life for a scholarship, and they were saying, if you don't get the vaccine, you're not going to go to the classes, which means your scholarship is a void. So a lot of people were cursed, and they were so good at it. And I think everything that they did was specifically for people, as many people as possible, to be jabbed, and many, many times. Now, the question that I cannot find an answer for: why? Why did they want everybody to be vaccinated? Why did they went to such an extent of coercion to get everybody vaccinated?
I think it's like the path of the least resistance. People know that people prefer it. So I was unvaccinated from my sister's, uninvited at my sister's wedding for being unvaccinated. It was like, if you come here, you could kill elderlies. But I didn't take the vaccine. It was like more a fuck you moment. Like, who doesn't uninvites their own brother for for not complying. Quite wild, especially if your family relationship was quite good, was very good. So, yeah, I get you. I mean, like they know that that people usually follow the path of the least resistance, and I have many friends who all didn't want to take the vaccine, but they eventually took it. One because his volleyball team coerced him into taking it, and the other because she couldn't go to the grocery store in Lithuania anymore. And, it goes on and on and on. And, I tell them, oh, just tell another person to do your groceries. Oh no, but they wouldn't do it for an unvaccinated. They're like, oh, this is crazy. So yeah, so many people got more or less forced into taking the jab. And there are just very little who said like who understand that the government is no good for you. I think you have to understand before rejecting it. You have to understand the government doesn't want the best for you. If you understand that the government is not there to protect you but to harm you, it's easier to say no because the government doesn't want to protect you. They want to control
That's
you.
true. Yeah, and
And
in
once you understand this, you can say no. But if you still have the illusion that the government is good and the government wants the best for you, people are like, okay, they're probably right. Let's get the jab.
I think like we were at least lucky that we're in Germany. Like it wasn't as bad as in some countries. For example, in India, they were like they didn't allow anybody to go to work, and because they didn't work, they couldn't eat because they had to work to eat that day, and they were forced to stay home and not to earn money to eat. It was that bad. But why do you think that they did it? Why do you think it was important for them to vaccinate us?
Oof. I don't have there are so many potential theories. So either they want us sick and the medical industrial complex earns more money on us. I think it was primarily about money and about control. So, I mean, like, there's no coincidence that um, every single leader of the Western world was saying, like, build back better, if you remember. Build back better, you know?
What does that
Um,
No, I don't remember. What is that?
you remember? So, Trusten Trudeau said it, Merkel, Johnson, Klaus Schwab, literally everybody said build back better. They said, like, oh, there's a pandemic, but we can actually, oh, they call it the Great Reset. It's like we need a great reset now. We need to reset our society. And I think this was their goal. So before COVID, QR codes were used by nobody. No, but nowadays everybody is scanning QR codes. We're getting there where Chinese are. So there's a QR code. You have to scan it or you have to show it, and then if your social credit or whatever credit isn't high enough, you're not allowed to take public transport. Um, so in order to get people there, you need, of course, events. And this event showed a lot. It's like, okay, 90% of the people they will obey, right? So they will vote to the government. So there are 10% of the people that we need to take care of, and it's literally to make people to accept QR codes and all these digital IDs, whatever is coming as well, so they can actually control us even better. I think without this event, how would they get people to scan QR codes? How would they implement a digital currency and digital ID? I think it's close to impossible. So they need an event in order to get us closer to to these Orwellian dystopian times.
Kind of like a test run because you couldn't fly. In order to fly anywhere, you needed the QR code.
Oh my gosh, I was flying the whole time, and I didn't get tested. I didn't get vaxxed
How did you do
because
it?
they're idiots. So so their system was okay. They're I wouldn't say idiots. They're fucking idiots because these testing centers, you remember you could take a test somewhere and there's this website you could log in. You could get in QR codes, right?
Okay.
There were many testing centers. Like I mean, Germany had testing centers in every city,
I didn't
official
do it.
ones.
I did it once, and it felt like they're poking my brain, and I never did it
Okay,
after that. They're just
good.
like, "Put it through."
So, anyways, what I heard, so there's at every airport, at every hospital, and there were so many testing centers in Germany, Holland, everywhere. And you would do the test, and they would literally send you a document or a PDF or whatever with a QR code, right? So people could scan, see
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, she took the test, or she's positive, she's negative. And every website had uh, this kind of crypto validation thing underneath, so you could see if it's fake or not. Um, well, they're not the smartest. Let's put it like this, because I mean, like they only had a couple of weeks in order to develop a system
Mhm.
for their testing, so their code wasn't really secure. It was very easy to um, let's say hypothetically, because I don't want to commit a crime on camera here. But I mean, like if I were a hacker, it would have been super easy in order to generate some QR codes for myself, and literally for
Okay.
every single laboratory. So yeah, the systems were very weak, and well, I enjoyed flying the world because it was just like going intercontinental $400 round trip. So wow. Um,
Yeah.
and being mask exempt at the same time. So I was like, I wasn't wearing a mask. I was just like normally on the plane, unvaccinated, untested, not wearing a mask as the only one on the plane, causing lots of trouble because nobody wanted to sit next to me. I was just like enjoying this. Um, Seeing all these NPC people crying because I was there unmasked, and I was enjoying this a lot. And I was, yeah, I don't want to say I was abusing the system. I think the system was abusing me. So I was just like continuing living my life, right? So why should I
Yeah.
give up my freedoms for for a fake pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. So what you just said there were people who were crying, right? And that's
Yes.
not understatement. There were people who actually went batshit crazy. And there are
Yeah.
people who to this day wear masks. And
Yeah.
so that's what really gets at me. The government is doing one thing. There are malicious people who are doing this to us, but we are doing it to each other. There are people who actually were I've saw posts on Facebook and they were like, "We are hiring, let's say, waiters or somebody only vaccinated." Or we are they're giving away some, I don't know, something only to vaccinated. Or they were just attacking each other. We were attacking each other over this. There were people who were saying to pregnant women, if they were hesitating, they were like, yeah, you should take the vaccine, even if they had no idea. They were not even doctors. And that's what we did to each other. Obviously media did help with this, but that's what really scary, because the government doesn't, it can just start, but the people will continue the abuse. And that's what really scares me the next time. And how do we what do we do? Like, how do we make sure that the people are um aware and stay, I don't know, critically think and stop abusing each other?
Yeah. So I think, humanity hasn't changed. So you have seen this during, Stalinism. You've seen it during East Germany, Stasi. You had the same. Then you had McCarthyism in the US. So you always have people who act like snitches. I think what the best counter of it is like to show that you are pro freedom. So if there is a group big enough to say like, look, no, we don't we don't agree with this, we don't obey, um, then other people will follow you. So, for example, once I had a situation at KLM in the plane, and they they told me, "Can you please put a mask on?" I was like, "No, I'm mask exempt. Here's the document of the doc." They tried to call the doctor, but it was like 2 a.m. Like nobody's answering. Like, sorry, this is my document. I'm not going to put a mask on. And then they said like, "Oh, but the flight will be delayed if you don't put the mask on." I was like, "It's not my problem." And then they said like, "Yeah, we have to receipt everybody, and we have to give you two rows for yourself." I was like, "Oh, that's perfect. I can lay down." And they got mad at me. I was like, "So what? If you want to tell me to wear something I'm exempt from, it's a medical thing. So I don't want to use it. I mean, I can't use it." And they were like, "Okay." Then they had to And then they were putting me at KLM in the back of the plane, like Rosa Parks in the back, in the back of the bus. I was in the back of the plane, had rows for myself, and then the pilot was like, "Oh, we had a delay of 30 minutes because one passenger doesn't have to wear a mask and he doesn't want to wear it. And I just want to make you aware there's an unmasked person on this flight. If you want to deboard right now, you can do it." And I was just like sitting there
What?
recording and laughing. Yeah, I had a good time. And I knew it was, I got used to it. And then one stewardess came up to me. She said, like, "I'm so jealous." She just told me, "I'm so jealous that you have all this space here and that you don't have to wear this mask." Because this guy who made a big drama was another steward. He was like super gay. He was talking like the gayest way you can talk. And he was like, I was like, "I don't care. I'm not going to wear this mask. I don't care." And he was like starting a big fight. Is this fake? I'm like, "No, it's not. I don't care what you say." And so
Yeah,
it
people.
wasn't the only time. It was like several times on flights I got into this, but I'm like, I'm just like quiet, enjoying this, and I didn't give a fuck because if I let them take my freedoms, and everybody is acting like, you know, like everybody is letting them take your freedoms. We are heading into a even more authoritarian society. And if everybody spoke up and stood up and said like, "No, not with me," we wouldn't have gone there. So yes, I
Yeah.
was I was one of these people who dared to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I wish there were more people who could withstand that kind of pressure because the pressure was immense. And these masks were plastic. They were
Yeah.
you were breathing plastic. They were so disgusting. And they were not, they were saying we have to wear N95. And it was twice more expensive at the time. And not everyone can afford N25s
And
because you
90
have
and
to buy.
95 and 95, right?
Sorry, N95s, yes, they were more
Yeah.
expensive, and there were people who actually had to wear over and over again, and that's so disgusting. They have to wear every day for hours the same mask because not everyone can
Yeah.
afford those
It's a
masks,
petri dish.
and
It's
they're
a petri dish in
disgusting.
front of your face. So you were
Exactly.
inhaling your like bred bacteria and fungi, and the microplastics. So there are studies that show how many microplastics people have in their lung and actually entering their system just because of wearing these masks. And of course, it's if an adult says like, "Okay, I want to do it," okay, it's your thing, but they made children do it, which is child abuse. And these children most likely will have adverse effects that we don't know are going to come here. Because I mean, like, we are just figuring out how bad microplastics are for your organism. Imagine all these children who were like for 2 years sitting in school, inhaling microplastics. This is gonna be a next epidemic, but this is a human made one, not like this these sniffles.
Yeah. Those that was the crime like, it was like also women who gave birth in masks. There were women who gave natural birth in masks, and one of
Wow.
the I probably don't know, but, like, breathing is one of the key elements
Yeah.
of giving
Yeah.
birth.
There were
That was
people going swimming with masks. Like, oh, this is social Darwinism. I love it. I mean, like, this is the principle of Darwinism. These people, if they do it to themselves, it's okay. But if you force another person to do it, it's a different story. So telling women like you have to wear a mask at birth is it's evil.
yeah.
It's vile.
I think we should come together. I think we as humans should come together and say no. And I wish that we had the wisdom to say no and courage to say no. But unfortunately, that was not the case. Do you know, have you heard about the PrEP Act of World Health Organization?
Yeah, yeah, of course. And it went
Yeah.
through in most countries already.
Yeah, can you talk about that?
Um, well, I can. I mean, you can probably tell us more about that than me. But at least the World Health Organization is grasping power with this act. So, in case of the next pandemic, they can actually tell nations what to do, and they have to obey. So, if they ever declare a new pandemic, actually, the WHO is the global government who can tell countries what to do and what not to do, which is crazy because everybody was always like, "Oh, this global government thing is such a conspiracy theory," and now they're enabling it. And I mean, they can just come up with whatever, you know? They can come up with the same story and say like, look, there are people dropping like flies in China who never dropped like flies. They can come up with some videos like, oh, there's a new pandemic. Now we need lockstep again. Um, so this is some kind of danger I see, but as far as I know, the US is not going to participate, and if not all countries or the majority of the countries participate, I think this is a dead horse, and I can just hope it's going to lead there. Depends on what people vote for, of course. But Germany, of course, the Germans love it. I mean, they can wait for it. But I mean, there are
Yeah.
still many freedom-loving countries. I think in Argentina, it's close to impossible right now, and I think in the US as well, and maybe several and many African countries the same. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah, they were very sneaky about it, weren't they? Because you didn't have to agree and sign. It was some kind of a situation where if the countries didn't opt out on their own, it would become legal.
Yeah.
So they had to be an action had to be taken. They were very sneaky. And if a country just doesn't pay attention, they automatically by default become part of the this PrEP Act and they give away all their freedom if a
Well,
pandemic
anyways,
happens.
whenever WHO says like, now you have to do this and that, the country, of course, is still free. Like, okay, no, I mean, like, as far as I know, these PrEP Act doesn't include any sanctions if a country says no. But still, regarding international law, or like let's say, I don't know, I don't want to call it international law, but they have to obey by contract. That doesn't mean that every country will obey, of course. I mean, like we saw this during COVID. There were countries that said like no, and then their presidents got murdered. Oh wow, yeah.
Wait,
Oh,
wait,
there was
wait, where?
yeah, it was in Tanzania. I think there were 2 or 3 African countries, and I think Haiti as well. But I'm not too sure about Haiti. At least there were some countries in Africa like we're not going to participate in this, and then out of the sudden, the presidents got murdered. So I mean, like they had their means, that they could show like, okay, if you're not on board, something is going to happen to you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think the only country in Europe that was not closing everything was Sweden, but they're very far already in this digital currency, digital ID thing. So they're already how do I say? What's the opposite of red pilled? Blue pilled. They're so blue pilled population. So they didn't need any specific measures, I think, in Sweden. But otherwise, you could see, I lost hope in humanity, because no matter where you were, would it be Switzerland, would it be an African country, would it be South America or Asia, everywhere these people were just like obeying. You know, they complied without thinking, and this actually shows that the majority of human beings is uncritical, and that they can do to us whatever they want. That's why wars start, because people are like not thinking. They're just like going with whatever narrative. And we can see it regarding Ukraine, regarding Israel, regarding literally every conflict we have. The majority of the people is trusting the government, and they just agree with the mainstream narrative. And I
Yeah.
mean, what can you do if you're the minority? Not a lot. I mean, like you can take care of your own life. You can make sure that you're free and all right. But I think there's nothing, or there's hardly anything you as an individual
Mhm.
can do for society. I mean, like I try. We kind of connected. We had like a huge group of critical people, so we tried to do something for society, but we didn't even have a fraction of the power that they had, with all the mass media behind them, with all these journals, with all the politicians, with everybody behind them. So
Yeah.
it's difficult.
I actually wanted to, it's good that you mentioned it. I want to talk to you about Ukraine and NATO because now we are hopefully coming to an end of this war. But you mentioned in your one of your posts as well that you think that the war, the people who were behind it was NATO and United States. And you don't believe this narrative that it was unprovoked.
I mean, like, do you know Newland? She said like, "Oh, fuck the EU." They're it started with the Euromaidan, and it was an external coup. I mean, uh, as much as I hate Wikipedia, but even Wikipedia says it. And they're totally pro narrative. So there was a NATO coup in Ukraine in order to get a more pro-European person in power. And what happened next is that, of course, people in the east of Ukraine in Donbass said like, "Oh no way, you're not going to forbid us speaking Russian, and you're not going to suppress our culture." And then they got shelled for in course of almost 10 years with,
By who?
by Ukraine, shelled, which means like drops bombed, right? Artillery. So 10,000 of dead, I think, or like was it 14,000? More than 20,000? I don't know. I don't have the number, but it was like a high amount of civil casualties. And it's like I always say, like imagine the USA, one state in Mexico is majority Americans, and they speak English, and then Mexico suddenly bombs the shit out of them. How long would the US remain quiet? I tell you, not very long, probably days. But Russia kept quiet for years, and they were tricked into Minsk One. They were tricked into so many diplomatic plays, and they remained quiet. And eventually, they invaded because they saw no other way out. I don't say that an invasion of a country is always is a good thing, right? But I mean, like you have to try to understand the Russians, and they've been quiet. They tried the diplomatic way for a decade. It didn't work. So they saved their own people, and what many people don't know, I mean, I know, is that the east of Ukraine is ethnically Russian, and the west is ethnically Ukrainian, or there's some Hungarians and Romanians as well. But that's probably it. It's like the Ukraine is divided in half. You have the Russians in the east and the Ukrainians in the west. And of course, when your culture gets suppressed and your civilians get killed, and then the country suddenly says like, hey, this Black Sea port, military port, we're going to give it to the United States and take it away from the Russians. Of course, Russia had to react. Imagine something happens on Hawaii, Pearl Harbor. Oh no, we're going to give it to the Russians. America would freak out. So it's geopolitical things, and the media doesn't tell us the truth. And they just were provoking, shooting down airplanes, and then saying it was most likely the Russians or the rebels. And the Dutch government said like, "Oh no, we can't make these files public because it would confuse the general public." So why not? If it were really the rebels, how would it confuse the general public? So there are so many questions and so many things that happened that that made me ask the narrative. And if you look into this, and it only makes sense from the Russian perspective. And I'm not like a big fan of Putin, because I'm a libertarian. I'm not and Putin is more authoritarian, but I can't blame him. I mean, like he's a leader who's taking care of his country, I think, to the best degree possible. He's wanting the best for his country, and meanwhile he tried all the diplomatic ways, and it was always the EU and NATO who were telling him, no, fuck yourself. So I cannot blame him. Of course, he's not innocent, right? So I don't want to say, oh, he's innocent. Everything what happened is NATO's fault, but I think to 90% is NATO's fault. And it was up to NATO, EU, and USA to de-escalate. And even though Trump and JD Vance are like, oh, we started this thing. So even if imagine the US president admitting it, so there is no more question left. So they started it, and unfortunately, it's young and brave Russian and Ukrainian men dying there for nothing. And this is what and that's what I hate. So I'm in several channels on Telegram from the Ukrainian side and the Russian side, and the ones call the others Gogoils, and the other call them orcs or whatever. Having they're all Slavic, and they're making fun of the dead Slavic brothers and sisters, and they're celebrating it, and it's just disgusting from both sides. But
Yeah.
anyways, I think Russia is not wrong on here, but the killing needs to stop, and they need to come up with a realistic approach, which means like really dividing up Ukraine in the Russian and Ukrainian part.
Mm. I really think that what they did there was so how I don't know the word, but you know that they were provoking Russia, and then the news is like they kept repeating. It was like on a tape
Yeah,
recorder. unprovoked attack. I actually talked to somebody, a journalist in one of the major publications, and I felt like I was talking to some sort of like a, I don't know, like a machine. Because in one
Mm.
speech, he repeated unprovoked. Russia attacked unprovoked. Russia provoked unprovoked. I was just smiling because I couldn't believe that this person was repeating the same thing that the major, what is it called, mainstream media was repeating. And they know that they did it on purpose. But the narrative that they were pushing was unprovoked. And this is like, when you look at an apple that is red and then you say this is green, and then everybody says it's green, it's green, it's green, and it's one of those cases how it shows how powerful they are, because they can literally make you believe something that's not true. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I don't think that Putin is in any way, shape, or form innocent, and I think his country would have been in a different place, and because there's poverty, the Moscow is the richest place, but the other regions, people are in old elderly people are living in a horrible conditions, and I think he's very corrupt. But yeah, in this one, I think I
Yeah,
agree with you.
ever been to San Francisco or LA?
Yeah, but we're
Same
not like
thing.
sure, but it's, I mean, still, like, I don't like when there's like like a accumulation of like the money in one place and then the whole
Yeah,
other
yeah.
place, and then like
Yes. Yeah, but
prosecuting
in Russia,
your
it's
pol
Sochi, Moscow, St. Petersburg, and then
yeah,
the east is quite. But I mean, like on the other hand, what he's taking care of is that there is no GMO in the food. So Russians are super healthy everywhere, and they have actually quite good access to healthcare. I mean, like,
uh,
even though people in the East are poor, they don't eat shit. So if you go to the US, to Atlanta or something where people are poor, they're like fat and unhealthy, and you don't see this in Russia. So, and also you have strong culture at these places. But of course, the corruption, it's always, if you have more or less a uniparty, that the corruption is also high.
yeah,
And I think there is lots of space for improvement, to put it that way.
sure. Yeah,
But I think he's not the devil that our media claims he is.
yeah. I would start improvement where he stops prosecuting his political opponents and poisoning them with like Novichok. So that would
Yeah,
be a good start.
if he really did, this would be a good start. But we don't know. We don't know.
Have you seen
The
Navalny's investigation? Navalny, he did
Yeah,
publish an investigation.
Navalny, the neo-Nazi who called people from the Caucasus cockroaches. I
But you're
it's
doing the same thing now. You're smearing him.
Yes, I think he was a very, very bad person. A very, very
Well,
bad person.
was he in the beginning he was, but then he apologized and he said he doesn't believe that anymore.
Well, he does. It's like what you believe. But let's say, was it Nemtsov who was shot like just in front of Kremlin? I mean, like,
Yes.
if you're the SGB, you wouldn't do it that way. You wouldn't poison Navalny. So it's super obvious. So he can actually leave Russia and get it tested in Berlin. You wouldn't kill the biggest critics just in front of Kremlin, so the media could, like, it's weird. You would give them a heart attack. You can nowadays inject people with substances that give you a heart attack, an instant heart attack. So why would they do it so in a
I
way that
think there
everybody knows? I don't know. Either they want to
yeah,
show, like, look, we are so strong, you don't want to be in the opposition, we are going to kill you. This could be, or maybe it wasn't them. But I don't
yeah,
know.
sure.
I don't know.
It
I
could
don't
be.
trust
Oh,
any party here. So I don't
yeah,
trust the West, and I also don't trust Russia on that. So I mean, like, I can just ask questions, and I think it's weird, from either
yeah,
side. But yeah, there's of course lots of need for improvement in Russian policies. But I think
yeah.
Russian people are very informed. At least to my Russian friends, I've been to Moscow a lot. I've friends in Moscow, and they're very informed about politics and what's going on there. More informed than we are in the West.
Yeah, maybe, but they're extremely, extremely brainwashed as well.
Yeah, I mean, like, who isn't? Who isn't?
Yeah,
But like,
yeah.
my friends, they for example, they vote for Putin, but they go to anti-Putin demonstrations at the same time, So they're quite informed regarding
Yeah.
Russia and what's going on there. And I mean, like, people need to be informed, because the more people are informed, the better they can make choice in the future. and I hope
Yeah,
they're gonna make a good
definitely.
choice. I mean, like, Putin is old, so there needs to be a follow-up soon, and I think people there are changing their mind, just like the youth in our Western countries is changing their mind rapidly currently, especially regarding how we see, how we perceive Israel, and and how we actually also perceive our own governments.
Yeah. I also wanted to talk to you about the most one of the most two popular topics on X. The first one was the Epstein files and then JFK files, and there was a lot of talks around that. What
Mm.
was your take? What did you
Oof.
think?
So my personal take is, Pam Bondi, the AG, she said like, "Oh, the Epstein files are on my table. I'm gonna release them right away," and she didn't. So she only released files that were already pre-released, nothing new. And it was called Epstein Files Part 1, but nothing happened since. So what I think happened is that of course, they checked the files and they saw the names that were on the files and they were like, "Oh, wow. There are so many of us on these files. Oh my gosh, so many Peters within our own circles. We're not gonna publish them." So this is my personal take. There are reasons she's not publishing them, or she's blackmailed by Israel because Ehud Barak obviously was on them as well, and I think it was a Mossad operation. So either or. So either it's like really names of that were are famous or Republicans, or or they were even blackmailed, or both maybe. So there's at least something going on in the back that why she doesn't publish them, and that needs to question why are they um, protecting pedophiles, right? I mean, otherwise they would make it public, right? We want to know who fucked the kids, right? So why don't want to tell us? What's in the files? So, and she is quiet about this. She was so loud and vocal about that she's gonna publish them, but then she doesn't talk about this anymore. Nothing. We can scream it from all the rooftops, and she would just like ignore it.
What do you think that she didn't know? I cannot believe that they promised it and then they didn't do anything about that. Or
So day
how
one,
look,
we're gonna publish it on day one. Day one.
yeah.
Now it's day
Day 1 before
110.
day 1 that Ukraine war is gonna end, before we're gonna publish JFK files, and then it just feels like nothing really is coming out of it. But then
No.
I just don't think that maybe it was just a tactique. Maybe they were not even planning to do it. Maybe that's what was the plan, that they were not even trying to release anything. It's just it makes no sense to me.
I
And it was
think there were, but I think most of the files were pointing at Israel, and it's their greatest ally. Um, so the JFK files mentioned Israel on Mossad several times. So you have to be like, and they didn't even publish all the information. There were, some are still national secret, and what's even in there, I don't know, it must be super crazy. The same with the Epstein files. So what is that dangerous for them about um, publishing them? So what do
yeah.
they have to hide? So whom are they protecting? It's always the question, whom are they protecting? Because I mean, like we know what the operation was. Like, it was a Mossad operation in order to blackmail powerful politicians and businessmen. Um, so knowing this and knowing that they exploited children, whom are they still protecting? This Epstein operation was so evil, was so nasty. Why are they protecting these people? So this is the only question you have to ask yourself, and you can answer it to yourself. I can't. I mean, I could,
So
but I mean, like, they could attack me, so I don't.
okay. Okay. All right. So another thing that I want to go into a rabbit hole of Rockefellers, because wherever you look, they always come up. Rothschilds, Rockefellers, they always come up. And I recently found out that Rockefellers, they changed the frequency of the music from like a from one healing frequency to something worse, and they were like messing with the education system. What do you think is, in your mind, what is the thing that's the most like malicious thing that they did?
Oh, I'm not too deep into Rockefellers, but I can tell you that they pushed, um, they had a big impact in medicine. So alternative medicine, um, they more or less abolished it. So vitamin D, herbs, etc., everything that actually works, that nature gives us, they were like going against to push big pharma. So Rockefeller is actually behind big pharma, which
Really?
is yeah, which is quite scary. I haven't heard about this music stuff. I haven't heard about. I haven't. I don't know too much about the education system, how they changed it, but I know that they were like pushing out naturopath, and that they are responsible for the conventional medicine we know nowadays. Um, I'm not too deep into the rabbit hole of Rothschild, etc. I know they're playing the background. They're probably no good people. They are, and yeah, they're involved into the founding of the central bank. Of course, that tells you everything you need to know about them. But I focused more on health the last couple of years because literally everybody is talking about Rockefeller and Rothschild. And what can you do against a shadow government? Nothing, but you can educate people still, and so everybody can have their own chance to change their lives. So this was my approach.
Yeah, I think that's what they did, isn't it? Like they, whenever you talk about natural remedies and natural all these herbs, you are labeled as like, what is it, how do they pseudo? It's a pseudoscience, or they
Yeah,
sort of, it's frowned upon. You're somebody who's not taking things seriously, and even the doctors will talk down to you even if you mention herbs and help that you can treat yourself with herbs. That's just absolutely something like, no, no, you should never mention to a doctor, because that's
yeah,
like
exactly. So, for example, testosterone is one of the biggest problems because all these beta cucks nowadays, they have testosterone levels of 200 or something, but they should be 1,000. And the solution of big pharma is TRT, testosterone replacement theory. But I mean, like, you can take stuff like ashwagandha, shilajit, etc., and you get it up to 1,000 easily. It's just about cortisol control. It's so herbs work perfectly, but of course they will not tell you that. So because there is no patent behind natural resources like stuff you find in nature. There's no patent behind going to the sun. So of course they need to come up with alternatives in order to earn money. And big pharma is big money.
yeah. By the way, do you believe that ivermectin, fenbendazole, that it can cure cancer?
It of not cure, but it will add to less inflammations because it's regulating your gut microbiome. So, and once it's regulated, you're knowing that 70 to 80% of the immune system is located in the gut. You are better off fighting cancer. It's as easy as that. And of course, ivermectin in conjunction with vitamin D and a sugar-free, healthy carnivore diet, I think, is the best recipe against cancer, which is a simple metabolic disease. Okay, I shouldn't say simple, but it's avoidable, and I think it's fightable. And there's something like IP6 that even has been shown to give a very high survival chance for pancreas cancer. But how can they earn money with that? They can't. So they're pushing this you know their products. You know,
Money making. Yeah. I
money
heard
making stuff.
actually, yeah, pancreatic cancer is the one that is the least survivable and it's least treatable. But
Yes.
you're saying there is something natural?
It's
What
called
did you?
IP6 in conjunction with a couple of mushrooms. So there are interesting papers on that even. Very interesting papers that I can just maybe I should send you some. You can post that. So
Yeah.
IP6 is very strong. Um, It's better than, yeah. So, but nowadays, if you're a doctor, if you're a doc, and you, for example, say people, oh no, don't take a chemotherapy, take something else instead. They could they could sue you afterwards. You lose your license. So, you're not allowed to make these statements. It's the same with, I think in Australia, someone made an oxygen therapy because once you have cancer, your blood lacks oxygen, and people were helping or aiding cleaning the blood and having alternative treatments, and that helped very well. But these people are being threatened, and we saw the same during COVID. Once you have a different approach than putting papers on ventilators and using remdesivir, you can lose your license. So it's not about getting people healthy. It's not about helping people to make their own decisions. It's about control, and it's about money.
Do you believe that we're getting all these data that the more people are dying after the vaccines? Do you believe that?
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean,
What,
like, we're getting all the data. It's governmental data. So we have the data for excess mortality. We have the data from cancer screenings. So yes, we can definitely draw this conclusion. Because why should governmental data lie? I mean, like, they've been lying so much to us, but why would they? Um, yeah, I mean, like, why is that the data that there's an increased excess mortality since we've been injected? It's government statistics. It's the same in every country. So we have seen a peak in excess mortality in April, May 2020. That was when mainly very old people who were already very weak and about to die, they all died because of elevated cortisol levels, chronic elevated cortisol levels. You remember the fear mongering from the media? Are we all going to die? So old people were isolated. They were not allowed to see their family anymore. They died. Um, then we haven't seen any more excess mortality. In of the pandemic of the century, there was no excess mortality until they started jabbing people. So with the vaccine campaign, the excess mortality went up, and it's still going up. It's not going down now. It's still going up, which is scary. So there's a guy, a scientist on X. He's called the ethical skeptic, and he's putting all the information together regarding different cancers, excess mortality, etc. So it's very scary information, that if you're vaccinated, you should look into this. But if you're unvaccinated, you can look into this and say, like, "Oh, I always knew." So yeah, it's still increasing the excess mortality, and people are not getting jabbed anymore on a large scale. So this makes you wonder.
mm, do you believe in the shedding?
Yeah,
How does that work?
I don't know, but I experienced myself. So I mean, like, my best buddy, he was getting the vaccine, didn't want to tell me, and he was getting the same day to my place, and we had beers together. And like 2 days later, I had heart issues, and I went to 3 hospitals. So and then he told me afterwards. So it was not a nocebo effect that he told me I got the vax and then I got it, like, mentally. He told me after I had the heart issues.
Did you
My heart
have
had
heart
super
issues
weird.
before?
No, never. Just like right after he visited me.
Interesting.
Yes, yes, but I don't know how, and but just like it wasn't really too crazy. So um, it was they said a soft, very soft myocarditis, very soft. So I had like this rhythm thing, but yeah, I mean, like, I was never sick. So people said, like, oh, you could have had COVID without knowing. That's bullshit. You can't have a disease without knowing. Especially my vitamin D levels were so high. Every time a pathogen enters my mucosa or anywhere in the body, it's attacked right away. And so I wasn't sick, but it was just like, what a coincidence. He was at my place, and I also know
So
other stories of girls who met with freshly vaccinated friends of theirs, and then they had periodic problems.
yeah, I
Um,
heard about that as well. In the beginning, shedding was more like sort of a myth, but people were still talking about it, but we didn't really believe it. But now more and more people are talking about it. But is it in
well,
the
the original Pfizer studies, they asked people whether, about shedding. So why would Pfizer ask people about shedding?
Oh, they
I mean,
did?
yeah, they did. So I think Pfizer knew. I think they knew that this could shed. Um,
Mm.
but the question is to what degree and what is causing this phenomenon? Because I don't know. I'm just like one. N
Is it
equals
like
one. I'm just
in the
one. But
in the air, like when you breathe? Is it like particles in the breath, or is it like skin?
I don't know. But we probably changed the beer together. So so um, so I don't know. I really have no clue. I can just tell you what I experienced. It was no nocebo effect, and I have all the hospital data here, so it's real. It's not like made up. Um,
Mm.
So, but yeah, anyways,
Do
I'm
you
glad I
also
didn't get vaccinated. I'm wondering, imagine I got a higher dose of this, I would probably be dead. So I
Me
don't know.
too. I also
Yeah,
believe that I would be dead if I got vaccinated.
yeah.
I believe it because I was the COVID itself. I think you don't believe in COVID? I don't know.
For me, it's the sniffles. For me, it's the flu. It's the common cold, whatever you want to call it.
But I
So
got really sick. That's why I usually question this because I never used to get sick. I was never sick before. I mean, flu, I would even keep going to work. I never would take a day off. And then I had COVID and it was really, really bad. I was in bed and it was horrific.
wow,
W-
no, I didn't have anything, nothing, nothing. And
So I
also
believe in COVID.
my friends who caught it, unvaccinated friends who caught it, they said like, "Oh, just lost their taste." So it's probably, there's always a chance that you get like really a bad flu, and you also have really bad flu is really, really bad. But once they tell you, "Oh, this is COVID," this could also be said this nocebo effect. You expect that it's gonna be bad because it's COVID, and it's gonna be worse than normal because it's a mental thing. It's the same as if you if they strap you on a bed and they said like we're going to kill you by extracting your blood, from your vein, right? And you see blood dropping into a 5 liter can, and your heart could stop beating, not knowing that what you see there is grape juice and not your own blood. So the nocebo effect is a very, very strong effect, and I think
Sure.
yeah, I think by the media always telling you, "Oh, this is really, really deadly. This is so bad. Oh my gosh, all these. Oh, look at all COVID could do." And I think it could literally be a nocebo effect that you felt worse than normal. But I mean, like, if you compare it to a flu you had before, and most people tell me,
Yeah,
yeah, it was
this
like this.
one Yeah, but this one was not in my head and it was bad. I became yellow. I'm pretty sure something with my liver happened and I had very high fever and it was extremely bad. Like I'm never sick. And
So
also
this
like I
was
was
this
not
was symptom. But how can you explain that one symptom was to not have symptoms?
huh?
How can you explain that one symptom of COVID was to not have symptoms?
Yeah, that I actually don't know. There are a lot of people who say they had COVID, but they didn't have any symptoms. I
Yeah, that's what the
remember
media said. Usually when you want to categorize a disease, you categorize it. You say like, look, in the flu, your body hurts. You have fever, a headache, etc. If you have gastritis, you have something else. And literally all the um, uh, literally if you take the symptoms of COVID and flu, it's the same. It's one by one. It's copy paste. And
yeah.
of course, we can discuss if like any virus in a lab got modified, etc. Of course, this is discussable, and I don't know what to believe to be fair. But what I know is that the flu disappeared during COVID and later it appeared again. So for me, this is a big red flag. How does
Yeah.
the flu disappear and then people get sick all over the world with flu symptoms, right? And no excess mortality until this big fear mongering in April May, of course, but otherwise no excess mortality until they started the max vaccination. So in 2020 there was no excess mortality at all. In 2021, 2022, and even 2023, it's even worse. And that's when they gave you the cure for the problem, but actually the cure created the problem. So it makes you wonder: did we have a pandemic or not? No, we didn't. So
Yeah.
the vax is actually the mass murder weapon that they released, and I think they even didn't plan that to mass murder people. Just my personal belief. But I think it was the effect because if you there are many studies on mRNA and cancer research. I think since 2010 and ongoing, and they always had to stop, the research because it had serious adverse effects and it killed people. So and then they just released mRNA for a common cold virus worldwide and expecting different results. So at least even if they said like, oh, they didn't know, they're at least complicit because the data before already suggested a critical outcome.
Yeah. Did you I actually heard something about Brazil. They people were saying, okay, they were supposed to have a very high vitamin D levels because there's a lot of sun and most of the Brazilians are in the sun on the beach and so on. But the reason why they all had, well, according to this paper, very low vitamin D levels was because of
Mhm.
glyphosate in their food. Have you heard something about that?
No, I haven't, but I can tell you why Brazilians have a lower level because they're darker. They have more melanin in average, you know. So I think Brazilian has maybe 15-20% white people, and then the majority is mixed, and just also a small fraction of black people. So higher melanin requires you to stay in the sun for much longer in order to get sufficient vitamin D levels. So my Brazilian family here, they were like at 8 nanograms per milliliter, which is like, and they're white, which is super low, which is like, uh, how did they survive until now? Um, so yes, here in Brazil, vitamin D is not really a thing, unfortunately. And even doctors tell you, oh, 20 nanograms per milliliter is more than enough. And they always tell you there's toxicity if it's higher than 50 or 60. Actually, that's when it becomes healthy, right? This is your goal. You want to be between 50 and 100. But
Yeah.
they say like, no, that's too high. So I think it's the medical system here is, in my opinion, extremely corrupt. And I mean, you can tell this by people saying you should eat soy oil, which is like bad, just like toxins, and it's like everything Brazilians eat is just sugar, soy oil, gluten, um, yeah, and have low vitamin D levels. Of course, people are getting very, very sick here. So I think after Malta, Brazil is the country with the second most pharmacies per capita. Yes,
Pharmacies? What?
pharmacies. So there's no street without a pharmacy.
Oh.
And in Holland, I remember my place in Holland. There's maybe one town. There are two pharmacies in the whole town. Not a small town, a middle big town. So, but here in Brazil, every street has at least one pharmacy.
Oh.
People are chronically ill because of the soy oil, of the um, vegetable oils, and the sugars,
Oh, seed oils, the
seed oils,
what kind of oil they eat? Sunflower?
soy oil. All it no soy oil
Oh,
because they
soya.
produce all the stuff like
Oh,
yeah, soya is
I have
soy
never
in English.
we don't have I never saw one in
No,
our
no.
supermarket.
You have sunflower oil, you have canola oil. Yeah, it's all equally bad, but soy I think is the worst. So yes, so Brazil is literally seed oils and sugars. It's in everything. So people get chronically ill, and then they eat on a daily basis beans. So it's they say feijão, arroz, carne. So it's meat, rice, and beans. And these beans contain so many lectins because they don't soak them in water for like 24 or 48 hours. They just like cook them right away. So you have the lectins that are destroying your gut. Then you have the seed oil causing inflammation there, and then the sugar, of course, having your insulin spikes, and yeah, and they also all have all these corn syrup and the fructose they consume a lot as well, which causes liver issues and more inflammation. So the average Brazilian is chronically sick more than the US. And this wasn't the case until like 30, 40 years ago. They were like very healthy here and very, very
Oh,
skinny.
what changed? What were they eating back then?
Probably, oh yeah, regarding fats, they use banya. It's called banya here. It's lard. Lard.
Oh, it's good actually
Yeah.
from beef tallow, right?
Yeah,
Or is
beef
it like a
tallow,
pork?
large, yeah,
Yeah.
from pig or from beef. It's they used to cook with this all the time, and super healthy, right? Super
Mhm.
healthy. So
Yeah.
they were eating less sugars, much less sugars, and the supermarkets weren't as nowadays. So back they were like little markets where they bought their vegetables, which of course didn't use glyphosate and all this stuff, you know. They were eating with healthy fats. Healthy fat keeps you healthy. And then all this soy industry boomed. The supermarkets became westernized, and literally the supermarkets here it's only Nestle. I think it's 50% what they sell is Nestle. You know, Nestle is like
Is it
uh,
milk? Nestle? What is it?
Nestle is the biggest, I think the biggest manufacturer of food in the world. The Swiss
Oh,
company,
yeah, but what do they sell? You mean like
everything,
oh, okay.
everything. From every cereal to milk products, where they of course dump lots of sugar. I was looking into. I want to buy Greek yogurt. I was cooking some Indian food, and I want to have Greek yogurt for this. And I was buying it, and just a Greek yogurt. Why? I was like, okay, it must be pure Greek yogurt. And it was later was more sugar than yogurt. I was like, I can't use it to cook. Oh my gosh, this is awful. So I
Yeah.
usually make my own yogurt here, but I was in the city, so I didn't have my own yogurt with me. So I have my yogurt cultures here in the forest. But there I was buying it and was like shocked. And everything you literally buying in the supermarket is just like toxins for your body. I know where to start and where to stop. So people are extremely unhealthy here, and the only solution from the government is get more vaccines and get more big pharma products. So that's their communist solution for this. I don't know why, but it's very easy to control sick people. You know, it's not that easy to control um,
Yeah.
independent and self sufficient people.
Yeah. Actually, to quote from you, you wrote, "Big pharma creates customers, not cures." That's
Yeah,
from one of
yeah,
your
yeah.
posts.
Of course, of course.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I really love talking to you. There were a lot of things that I wanted to cover. I have so many, it's a big list,
Next
but
time.
we already, yeah, we're already finishing already. So thank you so much.